Hello and welcome to the Athletic NBA Show. It's Friday. I'm Dave DeFore, and that means it's Nerder. She wrote, joining me as they do each and every week, even on vacation, Seth Partnow in Palm Springs. What's up, Seth?
Another lovely day here in Southern California. Why the hell do I live in Wisconsin?
I don't know. Mo and I know what it's like out here. Mo DeKeel, what's up, Mo?
What's up? And no, Los Angeles and Southern California is closed. We are not taking any more visitors. We are overcrowded. Matter of fact, your clock's ticking. Time to leave.
Sadly, yes.
We're coming to Milwaukee. Actually, is what's going to happen. A little bit more affordable, guys. We got to jump right in because we have too much to get to. It's our annual playoff preview. We got to sign the Western Conference this year. They're going to take the Eastern Conference on Slam and Jam on Saturday. And I want to start with this play-in matchup. We just saw the Thunder handle the Pelicans last night. I thought, wow, they played a hell of a game. And even though they're so small, they did a good job of taking advantage of the non-Valanciunas minutes, which when you're looking ahead to Minnesota and you look at the size disparity, they're going to have to find a way to do the same against Minnesota.
They're not. Yeah. I don't want to say they're small. They're just not big because all their players are big except they don't have a five. So they have five big dudes who are just like all 6'7", 6'8". So I think that presented a lot of problems for New Orleans. I think it will probably present some problems for Denver. It's just the problem is, assuming they win, they don't have anyone at all to credibly guard Jokic, and that's going to be the series right there.
Yeah, I mean, Jokic is going to probably pick them apart. I think the fun stuff would, if it's going to be OKC, is, Shea going at them and putting Jokic in the pick and roll on the other end. I think is really where it's going to get interesting is can they guard him? Giddey was really good in this game. I mean, posted a career high, which probably doesn't count because, stats don't, this is the purgatory of stats type of game. And I feel like this is it would be a very interesting matchup for Denver in that sense. I almost feel like if they get Minnesota, it's more traditional and probably works more in Denver's favor. Like that's an easier matchup for them. And because Denver is such a low IQ team, it probably plays more into Denver's hands than anybody else's.
Well, you mean Minnesota's a low IQ team, not Denver. But yes.
Sorry, yes, Minnesota. It would be dumb to call Denver a low IQ team. I meant Minnesota is a low IQ team, and Denver can pick them apart.
Yeah, we're recording very early. Yeah, it's very early compared to how we normally record. Go ahead.
I kind of think so. Looking ahead, if we're going to look ahead for Denver, pat the 8th seed on the head, say nice season, like we do. Whoever they play in the second round between the Clippers and Suns, I think that the Thunder are definitely I think I would rather play the Thunder if I'm Denver because I think that's a better warm up because you're going to be facing similar challenges in the second round as you would against OKC, but not really the same at all as against, aside from a jump shooting big. But that's not really why Phoenix would beat you, right?
Yeah. And so we're recording this on Thursday. The play-in doesn't happen until Friday night. So we don't know if the Nuggets are playing the Wolves or the Thunder. I do think that we expect them to beat either team. They should. Do you guys want to make a prediction here on the play-in? I mean, the Wolves vibes are at an all-time low, and the Thunder just won a play-in game as the 10 seed. It feels like this is set up for Minnesota to come away embarrassed, guys.
I think this is, to be honest, I'm going to make a bold prediction that can go into either play-in game. This will be the first time a 10 seed. Or wait, no, Atlanta was a 10 seed. What weren't they?
No, Atlanta was the 8 seed.
Last year?
Oh, last year. They may have been. Who remembers?
This is the first year. This is the first year a 10 seed has even won the 9-10 game, I believe.
Thank you. Okay, then they weren't the 10 seed. This is the first year I think one of these 10 seeds will move on and be the 8 seed in the playoffs. Either OKC or Chicago, one of them will win, and if not both of them, but there will be at least one 10 seed that will pull off the miracle upset and make their way into the playoffs.
I think depending on how much we can put into the performances of the teams that drop down, that lost the first game, I think that we would be almost surprised if the higher seeded team won based on how Miami and Minnesota kind of played in the first game. So however much you want to read into that.
Yeah, I mean, neither team's playing their best basketball, and it's the worst time to be playing not your best basketball. For Minnesota, though, to be fair to them, they were ravaged by some kind of stomach flu, and then they have suffered a rash of, I mean, random injuries. Naz Reid breaks his wrist. Jaden McDaniels punches a wall and breaks his wrist.
Self-inflicted.
Yep.
Self-inflicted injury on that one.
Gobert punches Kyle Anderson and somehow, in the most awkward punch ever, doesn't break his wrist, luckily for them. And I don't know. I mean, it's a culmination of events, and it just feels like it's going to be done. By the way, not to even mention, Anthony Edwards got hurt in that game against the Lakers. When he jumped up on that second jump to try to block a shot and fell on his shoulder, he hurt his thumb, his wrist, and his shoulder, and essentially had to play decoy. I mean, he was awful. But in hindsight, I mean, he was playing decoy hurt. I mean, you give him credit because he gutted it out. They didn't have anybody else who could come out there and do anything credible. So it's tough luck for Minnesota, a team that
it was also
thought we'd like more.
It was also really shitty coaching in the last 6 minutes of that game. I don't understand when you have Mike Conley cooking, how Finch doesn't find ways to get him more involved. Maybe in the end of gameplay when you call a timeout, instead of having Kyle Anderson just dribble the ball into the backcourt and turn it over, maybe Mike Conley should have been in the action. I don't know, but that was just dumb coaching in that last 6 minutes of that fourth quarter and overtime.
Well, I agree with what Mo said. To be fair, I don't think any coach in the world is telling Karl-Anthony Towns or Anthony Edwards to catch the ball with the guy closing out on them and hold it for 4 seconds before doing anything. And that was, the last 6 minutes, that was, it wasn't even prevent offense. It was just like, I can't even describe it. It was just offense. Yeah. It was just like, I'm not going to make a mistake, so I'm going to do something very deliberate. And by doing something very deliberate, you're just sabotaging the entire offensive flow.
Yeah, it's a worse version of what we've complained about with the Celtics end of game, where they just slow down too much, trying to burn clock, and then they're getting into their actions just super late. And for Minnesota, they just were putting no pressure on the rim the entire second half of that game. The Thunder would welcome that. Please don't drive on us. They don't have bigs, right? Like, please don't drive on us. Please settle for jump shots. That's going to play right into their hands. So I think I'm with you guys. I think the Thunder can pick up this win, but ultimately it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters for that team, but it doesn't matter for the bigger playoffs because the Nuggets are the Nuggets. They've been the best team in the West all year. They have the guy who could very well be the 3-time reigning MVP by the time, the awards are handed out. And they're just going to be too much for either of these teams. Jamal Murray has looked fantastic. Michael Porter Jr. had one of his best seasons physically. Aaron Gordon was spectacular and a borderline legitimate all-star this year. His defense was super important for them. He got to be the Swiss Army knife on the other end for him. The Nuggets are really good. And I think I might be ready to trust the Nuggets a little bit, guys.
I could trust them at the first round. I mean, I think this is one of those things with the beauty of this, and this is the best part for the Nuggets, is they've gotten a lot of time off. They're going to be really rested, ready to go. Hopefully that won't turn into a little bit of rust. We might see that early on. But, for the most part, like, this is a rested team. I feel like they need to regroup. They kind of rolled into the playoffs a little bit. Doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but you just wish they looked a little bit better at times with some of that stuff. It's still a little bit of a sour taste with how the season kind of ended in those games where they were trying, or I should put in quotes, trying. But I think that is one of those things with them. I don't see a reason why this series is going to be more than 5 games. I could see a team coming in and stealing one. Not unlike Memphis stealing game 1 in Utah all those years. Like, I could see OKC kind of coming in and right into juice and getting a win in Denver, right off the bat. But I don't think it's going to be this isn't a series that's really going to threaten them. We've discussed it. OKC doesn't have the size, and honestly, Minnesota just doesn't have the smarts.
Yeah, if the Nuggets don't get it done in 5 games, I think it's a big disappointment for them. Like this doesn't need to go 6. Gentlemen sweep at best, and really they ought to sweep either team. They are that much better. But I think anything more than 5 games, that's a failure in the first round for them, and it doesn't set them up necessarily all that well for the next round because, I mean, whoever it's going to be, whether it's Phoenix or the Clippers, that's going to be tough for them. I think it's going to be Phoenix. You guys feel okay moving on to the 2-7 matchup, which to me is just far more compelling. The Lakers came back. How much were they down against Minnesota? 15? Came back from down 15 against the Minnesota Timberwolves. They showed some of that grit that they've shown all year long. This team fights, man. The Lakers, say what you will about them, but they fight, and their games have been very entertaining down the stretch as they've fought and clawed their way into that 7 seed. They're in the playoffs somehow, inexplicably. They completely overhauled their roster at the trade deadline. It's a balanced basketball team, and they're going to face a Memphis team that's got some questions right now, guys. No Steven Adams, no Brandon Clark. They're not getting the offensive rebounds, those second chance opportunities that their offense relies on. How do you guys feel just right off the bat, Memphis, LA?
I think we have to talk about the fact I think the Lakers are getting Memphis at the perfect time to get Memphis with those guys injured, with the front court kind of depleted. I feel like for the Lakers, this is actually a great opportunity for them to steal a series. Not just a game, not just make this extended series, to steal a series. I think what's fascinating about that is they're probably deeper in the front court than Memphis, and Memphis is just way better in the backcourt than them. And I think that's really where the challenge comes is, which positions are really going to win their battles and who's going to go completely nuts in that. I think this is an interesting series, and I hate to do it because everybody's always like, oh, the Lakers can win the championship, and we always roll our eyes. This is a series the Lakers can win. This is a lot closer than people realize, I think. And, a couple of things break their way. This works out for them. And Memphis, if they were fully healthy, the series is over. I don't think this is a series the Lakers can win. But now depleted, without Steven Adams, without Clark, it's a problem for them. And I think this is really concerning.
So I think that it's funny that the top 2 seeds in the West, I think, are being slept on a little bit in terms of I think people are being a little overly dismissive in general of the Nuggets and Grizzlies. And while I don't disagree with anything that Mo said, the Lakers came back from 15, but they had a lot of help. And I think that needs to be acknowledged because I think, it was a stirring comeback, but it was a poorly played game. And I think we need to acknowledge that. In terms of this matchup, stop me if you've heard this before, but Jaren Jackson's ability to stay out of foul trouble is going to be a pretty key game-to-game determinant of this. I think if he's in the game, I kind of wonder about the Lakers' ability to generate offense because if they're going to have a lineup on the floor that can guard it all, they don't have enough shooting. And if they have a lineup that can shoot, then you have D'Angelo Russell guarding John Morant. And I think everyone knows exactly how that's going to turn out.
Yeah, if they have a non-shooter, so Jared Vanderbilt, if he's out there, Jaren Jackson is going to guard him, and he's going to get to roam. And he's one of the best roamers in the league. I mean, he really, this season, I think, just dominated in that role when given the opportunity. So the Lakers are going to have to shuffle their lineup a little bit because I don't know how they guard without Vanderbilt. So let's talk this out a little bit. If Memphis wins, what does it look like, guys? How do they win? Is it just John Morant getting penetration?
It's John Morant getting penetration. It's Desmond Bane killing it on the second side when it gets swung to him. It's Dylan Brooks not taking dumbass shots. It's across the board, just a concentrated effort there. And defensively, them kind of just cobbling enough together, and finding a way of, hey, we'll let AD get his, but we're not going to let LeBron go nuts or whatnot. I think that's something that's really important to really kind of look at in this series with all of that. Because, Dylan Brooks will hound guys defensively. He'll probably be on LeBron. I don't know if that's as great a matchup as people will think. I think LeBron can be a bit of a bull when he wants to be, but the key word is wants to be. I think this stuff will get interesting. And there's a lot of tension in this in this is kind of a rivalry series. Like there's a lot of that. I mean, a lot of our rivalry series involve Memphis because they've just been so annoying. They went from being fun to being annoying to a degree that it's been an issue. And I think this is something we're watching for. But for Memphis, if their guards perform, make shots, and really don't get crushed defensively, I think they win this series easily.
I think the depletion of Memphis's front court is a little bit of a double-edged sword in that it's going to mean that Jaren Jackson plays almost exclusively at the 5. And I think that actually will serve to compromise LA's defense a little bit. Unless you're going to have like Vanderbilt guard him, and then you have Vanderbilt on offense. But if they're run, pick and pop, that pulls AD away from the basket. And without AD around the basket, like there is very little resistance at the rim from the rest of the Lakers, and that obviously plays into John Morant's hands above all. And that him being able to get to the rim, being challenged by Austin Reeves and 38-year-old LeBron and whoever else, I think that is a recipe for success for Memphis offensively.
Well, what does it look like to you guys if the Lakers happen to pull this off? It's going to be 7 if the Lakers win. I think it's got to go longer, unless, obviously injuries aside. I think if the Lakers are going to win, it's going to be a rock fight, which is kind of what they've been doing well, which is part of why their games have been so entertaining. Again, I understand this is not conventional basketball take, that ugly basketball can be fun to watch, but I like a struggle. And the Lakers have shown fight all year. LeBron James, when it comes to playoff time, the guy knows how to win basketball games from a just functional standpoint. He knows how to captain the ship. I have a hard time going against LeBron, especially in a first round series. The talent disparity, there is one. Obviously, I mean, when you get past LeBron and AD, there's a sharp decline in talent. And Memphis,
can't believe you would forget Austin Reeves and that trio.
When you get past LeBron and AD, there is a massive drop in talent. And with Minnesota, they just have a lot of guys who can really play and really fly too. That's the other thing. The energy that they have. They have a lot of guys. Santi Aldama can come off the bench and just fly around. John Conchar, they just have all of these guys that you can trust to go out and do stuff. And the Lakers don't, but they have LeBron and they have AD. And so I give them a shot. So what does a win for the Lakers look like?
They win this series if AD's MVP AD throughout the entire series. And I think that's really what it comes down to. Can Anthony Davis really just blow up and the way continue to play the way he did down the stretch that really got the Lakers into the play-in tournament? Remember, they started this whole thing and LeBron was hurt and they were 13th in the standings, and they had a shot even to get out of the play-in tournament in general. I think there's an interesting opportunity for them. This is a moment for AD right here to like really kind of put his just step up to the table and really kind of step up to in a way that carries the Lakers, because I think it's got to be him. LeBron's great. LeBron's also in his 20th year. You saw it in that game against Minnesota. He gets tired quicker. He can't carry the team for an entire game, let alone an entire series. This one goes on AD's back. They win this. AD is just by far the best player on the court throughout the entire series.
As Dave said, if LA wins, it's a grimy series. Seems kind of weird to say that that the grittier the series is advantage LA over Memphis. But I think that
the Skid Row Lakers.
I think that
oh, we shouldn't have done that one.
that ties into kind of what Mo said. Like if it's that kind of grimy series, and they're going to win, that means Anthony Davis has been just the physically dominant force in this series, and we know he has that in him. Does he have that in him for 38 minutes a night for 7 games?
Might be 40 minutes a night, to be honest with you. And I think there's a couple of things that for the Lakers, the most important thing is they need to get the Grizzlies playing in the half court. The Grizzlies are not a very good half court offense team. They're not. And that's actually where you get some of these questionable shots that come across the board and things like that. It's very Ja dependent, which Yeah, as it should be. And then, Bane on the weak side. But in general, like, it's not a great half court offense. There's not a lot of layers to what they're trying to do offensively. I think the other side of it, and the other thing that's kind of an advantage for the Lakers that nobody's discussed, the schedule for the first 3 games works out perfectly for them. There's 2 days off in between games. They play game 1 on Sunday. They played on Tuesday. So that's actually a lot of rest for LeBron, including a travel day. It's 3-hour flight to Memphis. Boom, deal with it. But that's a lot of rest. They play Sunday. I believe they play Wednesday, and then they play Saturday. It's a lot of time off. And that opens up a lot of doors to get LeBron a little rested, and you can get some bounce from LeBron early in the series there. And I think that's important. If they could steal a game in Memphis, this thing's going to be interesting.
Does Ja Morant need to make threes for Memphis to win? Because I do think that the Lakers they're gonna make him prove it that he can hit shots.
Well, so is everybody else. I think Ja Morant needs to get to the rim. He needs to be a terrorist at the rim. And by doing that, sucking in the defense and forcing guys to have to really kind of move around and scramble in that sense. I think that's the game there. I think Ja has to really get into the paint more than shoot the threes. And they're going to leave him open. They're going to give him those opportunities. But we've also seen a lot of teams do that. And I think it's very hard considering how fast that freaking kid is.
Who guards Ja in this series?
What's the
match?
Jared Vanderbilt. I think Jared Vanderbilt probably starts on him. If I had to guess, that's been their MO since he's gotten there. Put him on the opposing team's point guard or best player. Force them to. Jared Vanderbilt is a beautiful defender. The guy just forces you away from what you want to do. And if you think about a Ja and Jaren pick and roll, pick and pop, and you've got Vanderbilt and Anthony Davis, I trust those guys to guard it. But I think the issue comes with you're robbing Peter to pay Paul when you play Vanderbilt. You're boosting your defense and you're making your defense much better, but it's going to hurt your offense. They're going to dare him to shoot. They're not going to guard him. Jaren Jackson's going to be floating around, not worried about Vanderbilt at all. And Vanderbilt can make him pay if he cuts back door, because there are times Memphis can sometimes fall asleep ball watching. And Mo, we talked about this a lot with Memphis. When they're locked in, they're great, but they get a little bit front runnery. And when things are going well for them in transition, you can see a little bit of that show up on defense. Never for Jaren though. So that's the thing that the Lakers really have to contend with.
I'm going to push back a little bit in that I don't think Jared Vanderbilt has a prayer of staying in front of Morant. I don't think he navigates screens especially well if they want to go that way. And if they just spread the floor, have Ja back up to half court and get a running start, I don't think Vanderbilt, I think unless he's allowed to be extremely handsy, kind of where they kind of meet each other, I just don't think that he, Morant is faster and more slippery than pretty much anyone else in the league. And I don't think the theory of it, I understand. The actuality, I don't think will look that way.
I think if that's the case, Seth, I think then it just comes down to, all right, screw it. We can't guard him. Guard the hell out of everybody else. And I think that's really then what it comes down to. And that's where it's like, we're going to let Ja get his. He's going to average 38 this series. But everybody else is going to average 10. And that's, I think, or whatever. And I think that might be the actual strategy, because you've been in meetings. I've been in coaches' meetings where we walked in going like, well, can't stop.
We have no answer for that guy.
Yeah. Like, the options are not good. So, and then then you pivot. And I think that might be the pivot we do. I know we got to move on, Dave. So I think
no. Well, no. And they are going to relentlessly attack Ja on offense. That is going to happen. Like, we know that the switch has been flipped to playoff time, and it's all about the weakest matchup. Who's the weakest guy on the court? We're going to find him. We're going to go at him. And Ja is one of the weaker defenders in the league, much less in this series. And I think we're going to see a lot of this is where I hope the Grizzlies don't soft switch and don't give it up. Like, Ja should just try to fight and avoid these switches. Because when Ja gets switched onto LeBron James, that feels like LeBron's going to go to the line a lot, guys.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those instances where we're going to see Ja. Can he defend? He can't be a nothing on defense. He can't be a negative on defense. He's got to give a little more effort. He's got to avoid switches. And I think that's going to be an interesting one for how they kind of handle that when they come at him, because that's exactly who they're going to come at. And then when Luke Kennard's on the court, they're going to go at Luke Kennard. I feel like there's going to be a lot of different ways they're going to attack this team. And I think this isn't a sweep to me. Like Memphis can win this in 5. I could see this going 7. Like this could be a real battle. Like this can get ugly pretty quick.
It's funny the way we're describing how they're going to deal with Ja. Like Luka Doncic isn't in the playoffs, but the Luka rules are like make him basically body blows for 7 games, and he's gonna hope he wears down. And I think that's a very credible strategy in this case. For, as you say, Dave, like make him work a ton on defense, and if he's gonna have to get to the rim 25 times a game, okay, for 1 game, for 2 games, how do the legs feel game 5?
Well, this is where the Grizzlies youth, and guess what? They get the same rest that the Lakers get. So that could also help them out quite a bit too. Let's move on to the juiciest first round matchup, guys. The Sacramento Kings hosting, they're the home court team in a series against the Golden State Warriors. The key to this series, guys, is that the Sacramento Kings have the best offense in NBA history. And the Golden State Warriors have played like doo-doo on the road. And they've got to go into Sacramento and deal with that crowd and summon their defense. And I absolutely believe in the Warriors.
I want to. But I just the Warriors are going to have some putting lineups on the floor that work challenges. The Warriors are going to have to be very dependent on Kevon Looney being able to stay on the floor. I think that you can't, like, whatever you want to say about Domantas Sabonis, you can't guard him with the small. Like Draymond can guard him, sure, but you can't guard him with the small because he's one of the strongest players in the league, and he'll just put smaller guys in the basket. So it's got to be Looney, it's got to be Draymond. That's a worry point for Golden State in terms of their lack of depth, in terms of beef. The other side is like Sacramento's good enough offensively that can Golden State play Curry, Poole, Thompson lineups and not just get completely lit up on the other end? Can they get away with that? That's something that in some series last year there were some hiders on the other team, like Denver in the first round without any perimeter guys. Okay, Jordan Poole has to guard Austin Rivers. Okay, that's not going to be the case against this Sacramento team. So I think that there's some real lineup challenges. And that's before we get into the issue of reintegrating Andrew Wiggins back into in a playoff setting. They've been playing without him for 2 months, and that's gonna be at least odd, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Seth, we fell in this trap last year. Last year they had a guy who didn't play until the playoffs, and then we fell into that trap. I think it's a little bit different with Wiggins and Steph Curry, but I think the scenario there is I think Wiggins will be fine because they don't need him to do that much. And this is kind of a series where he can listen. He's got a tough assignment defensively, but he doesn't have to carry a load offensively and things like that. I think that's one of those things they can kind of ease him into it with what they're going. Listen, Sacramento's had the most amazing offense all season, and it's what we talk about every time we get in the playoffs. In the playoffs, it gets very difficult. Golden State has watched several hours of film at this point of Sacramento's offense. They've decided where they want to attack, how they're going to attack it defensively, and things like that. The real question for Sacramento is what's plan B, what's plan C, because they're going to take away plan A, and that's what the playoffs is. What's your backup plans? That's why I always value offensive versatility. Their game is so heavy DHO dependent. What happens when those catches get pushed out above the three-point line? Because that's going to happen. They're going to have games where they blow up offensively. They're going to have runs offensively. But this game right now is how does Sacramento counter when Golden State's defense steps up and takes away stuff that they want to do? And I don't know if I have the answer for that. And I'll be very curious to see what Sacramento does in that instance.
Well, let's start with what it looks like in a Warriors win, right? Like, I mean, if the Warriors win, the Warriors could win this in 5. They're the champs. And if they're at full health, which it seems like that they are, I think they should be the better team. This is a team that is better than its record for sure. They had a really weird season, but they could win this in 5 games if they just go out and play like the Warriors. If they defend at a top 5 level and they have a top 5 sort of offense, I think that this series is actually easy for them, because I don't think the Kings can defend the Warriors the way that the Warriors are capable of defending the Kings. I just don't think the Kings have a defensive ceiling like the Warriors have. When everything's locked in, you get Andrew Wiggins back, Gary Payton is back and reintegrated into what they do. Everyone's kind of been bumped down a spot. And you mentioned, can you play Jordan Poole, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson? You may not have to. This might be a huge Dante DiVincenzo series, actually, because what he's done for them offensively, plug and play, and then he brings it on the defensive end. So what does a Warriors win look like to you guys?
Well, I think just they cruise offensively. I think you touched on it with Sacramento's defense. Just Sacramento's inability to get consecutive stops is what worries me a ton in playoff series and things like that. And it's more just eye test because I don't have the numbers. Thanks, because nobody ever listens to me and gives me the kill stats that I want. But just the pure fact of, like, I watched their game against Milwaukee I think it was in March, and they were winning most of that game. And then Milwaukee at the end turned it on offensively, and Sacramento couldn't get consecutive stops. They couldn't string stops together, and that's such a weakness for them in that scenario. They have such a high octane offense, but if you give it all back on defense, what's the point? And I think that's really where the challenge lies for them with what they do. And Golden State takes advantage of that and steps up defensively. I think this is a not as close a series. This is one of those series where we're going to call it an upset just because it's 3-6, but I don't think it's going to feel like one. I think everybody's picking the Warriors.
Seth, you feel about the same?
Yeah, I think that Sacramento's defense, all year, I think their defense has been a little bit better than from a structural standpoint, than their underlying numbers. Unfortunately, they've kind of been hit by the opponent's shot making stick. Unfortunately, look who they're playing against. So not to look ahead. If they are able to win and then play Memphis in the second round, that's a much better matchup for what their defense kind of allows / forces teams into. So that's like as Mo said, like I am not as sure that the Warriors are going to be able to, get Sacramento out of their stuff. I just might not matter because the Warriors might put up 125 offensive rating for the series.
Yeah, reintegrating Andrew Wiggins will be pretty easy compared to Steph Curry last year. And a lot of that, I think, is Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson has just been so good, and especially the second half of the season, he just looks healthy. So it's a little bit less demand on Wiggins for this playoff run, in my opinion. They won't need him to create as much. They won't need his shooting as much. So, when we're worried about Wiggins kind of working his way back in, I think they've got a little bit of a buffer that they didn't have last season because of Klay Thompson and how good he's been. Seth just disappeared on us. I think he's going to come back. Mo, what is a
He might have just took a dip in the pool.
I mean,
he might have gotten too hot and took a dip in the pool.
He's on vacation. So Mo, what does a Kings win look like? I mean, is it just the matter of Warriors offense gets a little clunky and they just can't figure out how to defend?
Yeah, I think the starting point for the Kings is the Warriors are not able to stop them offensively. And I think that's a big part of it. And the other side of it is they get up and down a lot. They push the tempo in terms of pushing the pace. De'Aaron Fox, John Morant might be the fastest player in the league, but De'Aaron Fox is right behind him. It's like the Flash racing the other Flash. I don't know my comic book DC stuff.
A-Train.
Anyways, A-Train, thank you. But I think it's along those lines of that. And I think that's kind of, he's super quick. Can they push the pace and really fly up the courts? I think that's going to be the thing that matters the most. It's going to be if they can control the tempo of the game and play at a much faster pace, it plays in their favor. and it allows them to not have to play against a set defense, really attack and get a lot of easy buckets. That's how I think Sacramento wins this series, is by playing faster, which is something we always talk about in the playoffs. You can't play fast. They're going to try to prove you can.
And I mean, take advantage of their youth too. I do not think that, Golden State's main guys want to sprint up and down the court for 48 minutes. I think they can play that way in spurts, but I don't think they want to play that way for 48 minutes. The other thing I would say for Sacramento is you were talking about them being able to put Golden State being able to push the DHO game out past the 3-point line. You're shoving Domantas Sabonis off the elbow. That's happening. That's something.
Well, they're going to pick them up so early. I just think that they're going to pick those guys up at the 3-point line.
Yeah. But Sabonis can, I think that's, I think that Sacramento is, you're right. At times they will be able to, but I think Sacramento is going to, part of the reason why that action is so hard to guard is Sabonis can get where he wants to go because big, strong man.
I mean, the Warriors are also going to the Warriors are also going to force him to go right. They're going to force him to shoot right. And that's going to be a thing. I mean, the playoffs, we know the playoffs are just a different beast. The guys go harder and they are more hyper-focused on the scouting report. And I think, Sabonis is a guy who, he's got a lot of strengths. I have him third team All-NBA center. He had a great year, but the Warriors are going to go after your weaknesses, and that's all you're going to have left. So can he score going right? Can he pass going right? Can he make the same read dribbling off of it with his right hand and getting at the basket? So those are the questions I want to see, in game one. I want to see them answered because that's what they're going to play. That being said, I think it's a huge Malik Monk series. You mentioned Jordan Poole. Well, Malik Monk's going to be out there a lot of the time that Jordan Poole is, and he's going to attack Jordan Poole. I mean, Malik Monk could go for 30 a game in this series. I could see that happening very easily. He is just he's like TNT and just ready to explode at any time. And the Warriors bench, that defense that's not the defense that we're used to seeing out of the Warriors. So, Draymond, I want to see what his minutes look like, how much time they can get him out there with the bench. You mentioned the Warriors' lack of size. And how, they need Looney because of Sabonis. They just don't have anybody else beyond Looney and Draymond. So, if they're going to match up with Sabonis and some of the size that the Kings can put in the interior, I mean, Alex Len is fine, right? Like, he's not a great player, but he's big. You can't teach big. So I just wonder if that interior size is going to bother the Warriors. They're just so small.
I'm probably not as concerned about it because I think it's just going to be a Looney and Draymond kind of rotating on Sabonis in that instance. And I think, Kerr will probably stagger those guys a bit, take one out early, have the other guy guard Sabonis, then kind of keep rotating them in. Foul trouble can be a concern with those in that instance with everything that they have. But I also think, listen, we didn't talk about much, but Jonathan Kuminga is really important for this team, for the Warriors, defensively and what he can do. And I think, put him on Fox, have him chase Fox around for a while. And that length really makes up for some of the speed deficiency there. He's quick and athletic, and that long ass arm is going to get in there and get in between the dribble handoffs and things like that. I think that's a really, really important player for the Warriors in this series is Jonathan Kuminga, and it's mainly on the defensive end. And if he can kind of be an important factor on that end and really matter and muck things up, it gets difficult then.
Yeah, he's also big.
But
he's also big and can
lean. But that's a guy. But I was just about to say that's a guy Sabonis will push around though.
Oh yeah,
that's a guy I would be careful about putting on Sabonis.
Yeah, but I like him on Fox. I like that idea because he can actually put pressure, like just again by being big, using his body. If he gets into Fox's hips, it's gonna be hard for him to turn a corner. I like that, Mo.
No, this is, I'm glad we got onto Fox because we're making a short list of the guys with the most to prove this playoffs. And it's, of guys we'll talk about today, it's Nikola Jokic, obviously, Joel Embiid in the East. I think De'Aaron Fox has to be on that list somewhere. And this is going to be a really interesting challenge for him in his first playoff because of how many different guys that types of guys that Golden State can throw at him. They can, you can put DiVincenzo. Gary Payton has had great success last year as kind of a ball hawking guard. He'd go a little bit more size with Klay Thompson at times. And then, as you say, go even bigger with Kuminga or even Draymond Green. Just a lot of different looks that Fox is going to be shown and have to kind of navigate to really. This is his first chance to really show. Is he just a pretty good player, or is he kind of that next level up?
And they're going to make him shoot. Also, they are going to make him prove that he can hit open shots. They are not. I mean, that's the story of the Warriors is pretty disrespectful when it comes to guys who maybe are iffy from deep. So I think he's going to have to hit some shots in order for them to win this. But that I cannot wait for that series. That series is going to be electric. It is going to be so much fun. I hope Fox has a huge series, even if they don't win. I'd like to see him kind of go off. Not a lot of players in the league that are more fun to watch, and especially he's so damn fast. It's just incredibly fast. Okay, last series, but not least. The Clippers and the Suns, the 4-5 matchup. The Clippers, a team that doesn't know each other. They're strangers. They literally do not practice. They barely play together. But Kawhi Leonard has been nuts the second half of the season. He looks like Kawhi Leonard that we all think about when we hear the name Kawhi Leonard. And the Suns, well, they have Kevin Durant, who's playing like an MVP. He shot 62% on twos this year, guys, mostly jumpers. 55, 40, 90 shooting splits for the season. He's the first guy ever to do it. They obviously have Devin Booker. They have Chris Paul. They have DeAndre Ayton. They have four guys that can just demolish you in the mid-range. Do the Clippers have any chance whatsoever against the Suns?
I don't think there's a reason. I mean, like when we look at the Suns, they're playing 4-on-5. Their fifth guy is always going to be a question for them. And then it gets even worse when you look at the rest of their bench. Like the one thing we could say about the Clippers is they're pretty deep. They got guys down the line on that roster that can help them in this series. I think the Clippers definitely have a chance. I think it comes down to, can Kawhi play like Kawhi that we know he can? Can Russ control himself? Which, to be honest, we don't think he can. And I think that becomes an issue there. And then, after that, it's a lot of questions for everybody else. Zubac versus Ayton, I think that's a hell of a matchup. That's a, and I might even favor the Clippers with that because I love Zubac so much. He's just such a quiet killer in the way he plays. I think, you're going to need big games from Terrence Mann, Norman Powell. You're going to need Nicholas Batum to do all the little things that he does. The margin of error is slimmer for the Clippers, but they definitely have a shot. They got Kawhi, and Kawhi can really just shut down a dude. He still can defensively, and he can drop 30.
Can I read off Kawhi's stat line for the last 2 months of the season?
Please do.
No. Does anybody ever say no?
27 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, steal and a half. Shooting 53% from the floor, including 47.4 on threes and 88 from the line. Like, close your eye. Yeah, he's just the number of games where you look up and he's like, oh, he's got 36 points on 36 points on 20 shot attempts. Just the level of dominance that he's shown at times. Can they win? Like, before we get into anything else, like, they have best player in the series equity. Against a team with Kevin Durant, they have best player in the series equity. So that is just before we get to anything else, we need to acknowledge that it might be as simple as which one of these guys outduels each other between KD and Kawhi.
All right. Well, let me ask you guys this before we get to how they win. Do you guys have any chemistry concerns about the Suns? They haven't had a lot of time together. They haven't lost with Kevin Durant. He's amazing. And Mo, you did one Mo thing where you laid out how much success they've had with certain actions because he is so plug and play. But like, do you worry about chemistry issues in the playoffs with them?
I worry about it defensively,
mm-hmm.
knowing when to rotate, knowing when not to, where it's coming from, and things like that, and the situations you get put into that. I don't worry about that with the Clippers because I don't think the Clippers put you in a ton of bad situations. It's going to be Kawhi in the post. It's going to be Kawhi on a pick and roll. With no Paul George, that's really what it's going to come down to. It's going to be Russ pushing the tempo, and that's really kind of it from there. And it's a lot of one-on-one isolation stuff that the Clippers run offensively. So I don't really worry about it in this series. But I'm going to push back a little bit on the chemistry stuff because you started this whole thing with like the Clippers don't even know each other. This is the no chemistry game, no chemistry series kind of deal, right? Like this is, how much time have the Clippers really had with this group without PG compared to the Suns with Kevin Durant? Like there's a little bit of that. And I think it's not I think this series is probably going to come down to individual talents more than team. And I think it's going to be really kind of fascinating. I think Seth was whichever superstar can be more superstarish is going to be I think really one of the deciding factors in this series.
All right. Well, so and
we haven't even mentioned Devin Booker.
I know.
I mean, that's really the question now for the Clippers is who guards Devin Booker? Because Kawhi's probably going to take Kevin Durant. Who's guarding Book? I mean, Russ is probably taking CP. You're probably going to put Batum on Booker, which is good, but like that's
more
challenging.
More Terrence Mann.
That's exactly what they need.
And we'll find out if he can do it.
So a Clipper series win looks like Kawhi Leonard 35 a night, Zubac 20 and 15, something like that, and they win. Do you guys feel like is this a 7-game series to you guys regardless, or do you think that I think the Suns have a higher ceiling than the Clippers because they just have room to grow. And again, Devin Booker is incredible, and we're just now getting to talk about him. But Kawhi Leonard is Kawhi. I mean, that guy, when he's healthy, he was at one point, if not the best player in the league, definitely one of the top 3 or 4. And he's starting to look like that guy again. So it's hard to count him out. So for the Clippers, like, is a win just Kawhi goes for 35 every night? They find a way to keep KD under 30 and they just grind it out for 6 or 7 games.
I mean, this is going to be a long series. I think this is going to be challenging. I think it's what you said. I don't know if Zubac can do the 20 points, but if they can get an assortment of guys going off and Norman Powell having a big night, in a game or two, like it's going to be for the Clippers. It's going to be who's that random guy that's going to have a big night tonight. Terrence Mann some nights. Like that's, you're going to get a good Russ game somewhere in there. Hopefully that's what the Clippers are banking on. You gotta hope that works out. And Russ, to his credit, has been very good for them. And I think he's mattered for them. I think it makes a difference because Paul George is out, that he is that kind of guy that can have the ball more in his hands and push and attack a little bit more and be more Russ. I think that's going to be an important factor too. This one's going to be interesting. I still have the Suns kind of winning this in 6. I don't think this will be a 7-game series. I just think at the end of the day, it becomes challenging with I just think KD's too damn good. And I think you have a Booker getting your second best defender is really a problem.
I have no idea about this series. I don't feel like we know anything about either of these teams. I mean, we mentioned that Phoenix hasn't lost with KD playing. Do you know how many top 6 seeds they've played in those games?
Oh no,
0, right?
Well, no, 2. Denver twice, but Denver sat all their guys both games. So they've played a couple of play-in teams, but other than that, they've beaten lottery teams, which is good. You beat the guys who are in front of you, but it's a different challenge. So yeah, all the indicators are positive for both teams, but how much do you read into any of them? And then we're just going to have to see it. I think I'm with Mo that I lean Phoenix, but I would not be surprised by anything between a 5-game win for Phoenix to a 5-game win for LA.
Do the Clippers have enough shooting?
Yeah.
That's the tough part.
I mean, it's what it is it's kind of just some streaky shooters. Right. And that's one of those things, like they have guys that have reputations as shooters and guys that can score. But it is really up and down with them. And I think that's kind of my question with them. And, this really is the no chemistry series. They played 30 starting lineups this year for the Clippers alone. I mean, like that's a tough tough thing to settle.
You guys worry about the Suns' depth?
I do. I worry about their depth, and also just the again, to get back to what Mo said, like how much does the Clippers shooting matter if the Suns can't get weird on Kawhi, either because of personnel or they just haven't developed the chemistry to be able to execute kind of, any kind of trapping, run and jump, junky defense kind of stuff, which I don't think Monty Williams does a ton of anyway. So as Mo was saying, the reputation of guys as shooters might be enough to give Kawhi the room he needs to win the series largely single-handedly offensively.
What does the Suns win look like? Is it just KD 30, Booker 30? Is it just, okay, these guys are just going to hit every shot?
It's Chris Paul hitting threes. Because that's who you're going to leave. And that's who they're going to attack defensively. But it's Chris Paul that needs to hit threes. That's honestly what it's going to come down to. And really, and the other guys will matter. Torrey Craig, Terrence Ross, Josh Okogie, those guys have to be big. I think, like I said earlier, DeAndre Ayton and Zubac is probably more of a wash than we want to admit. It's going to come down to they're going to leave Chris Paul to go double KD and Booker. It's can Chris make them pay for that? And that's going to be a very important aspect for them in this series because I think Booker and KD will get theirs. They're too damn good.
I'm glad you brought up Ayton and Zubac again, because I think if we get the Ayton we saw for most of the 2021 playoffs, I think this series is a pretty easy Phoenix win. In part because LA doesn't have a lot of other options there, give or take a Plumlee. And they want to, LA probably wants to get to play small. But if Ayton is being aggressive and pounding the offensive glass and getting to the rim and playing with that force that we saw him play through 2 games of the finals, basically in 21, I think that almost takes that card off the table for LA. And it's just a huge swing because Phoenix is going to have to, Phoenix can't play small because they've got 4 dudes. So if he kind of takes the small ball card off the table or makes it unpalatable for the Clippers to play, I think that's a huge advantage for the Suns.
Any final thoughts on the Western Conference playoffs, guys, or the first round at least?
I think if you're Denver, you're probably hoping it's Clippers versus the Clippers beating the Suns. I think you'd rather play the Clippers in the second round than they own the Clippers. They really have. And for the Clippers, it'll be a shot at redemption. I'm so damn excited for the West playoffs. Just understand, even what we might possibly get in the second round is pretty insane. Let's just put it this way. If Memphis beats the Lakers and the Warriors beat the Kings, we get Memphis Warriors. If the Warriors beat the Kings and the Lakers beat Memphis, we get Lakers Warriors. That's something that's been building for a long time. Dave, you're new here. It's the NorCal SoCal rivalry. That's just a fun little ditty right there. Denver versus Phoenix in the second round could be absolutely insane. There's a lot of fun stuff that's potentially going to happen. And I'm sorry, I did kind of just dismiss the Kings there.
Oh, well, what if we get Kings Lakers? It's the Kings to the conference finals.
Old school rivalry. Old school rivalry, though.
Dude, the Lakers have Tim Donaghy sit on Celebrity Row.
Oh, come on.
All right, before we go, what are the odds Dylan Brooks is wearing that sweater that Shannon Sharpe wore to that Laker game?
That actually might get me to applaud him. But we also fucked up by not mentioning the Shannon Sharpe effect. Is he on the Lakers team playing to Memphis? Is my question.
Man, they got to roll him out like a mascot for game 3. Don't take him to Memphis. That's too much. But definitely have him sitting courtside for game 3.
It's all about too much, Dave.
That would be fun.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's have fun. The playoffs are here. We're excited. You guys should be excited at home, I hope. I don't know. I'm really pumped. The basketball it's about to get really good. So for Mo Dakhil and Seth Partnow, I'm Dave DeFore, and this has been Nerder. She wrote on the Athletic NBA Show.